let's talk about sacrificial plants for your garden. Behind me is one of my sacrificial plants. This guy right here. It is dead, but that's okay. So what a sacrificial plant is a plant that you grow that's going to provide some form of benefit for your garden or otherwise a use. You know it's going to be temporary when you plant it. Now, this dead thing here is a pigeon pea. Pigeon peas not only produce a crop of a fairly high quality edible pea that works great as a dried bean and a substitute for things like southern peas or lentils, kind of like somewhere in between the two. This is a sacrificial plant for me. I know it's short-lived perennial. This one is 6 years old before it died. It's kind of impressive because generally speaking, they only live for about 2 or 3 years. So the fact that this one made it to 6 and died on its 6th year, that's really long lived for it. But the whole time I've known it's going to be a sacrificial plant. Now, it's a nitrogen fixer. It's a chop and drop. And now that it's died, its service to my garden isn't over, because I'll turn this into biochar and feed it to the gardens. And it's okay that it died. I planted it knowing it's going to die. I've got several volunteers that have popped up in this immediate area that I'm intentionally going to let grow that'll replace this. Therefore, it will continue to be a sacrificial plant that will continue to serve in my garden as a nitrogen fixer, shade, food, biochar production. There's many different ways that you can use the concept of a sacrificial plant. Some of them you might intend to be there for a very long period of time, or some of them are just to break up the area. For instance, I had a couple very short-lived fruit trees. I knew they would only live for a couple of years. I grew them for quick shade, got a harvest, and when it died, it produced biomass and biochar for my garden. But there's other things that you can use as sacrificial plants. Let me show you a couple. This is my Mexican sunflower. I planted it here for basically 2 reasons. One, I needed a quick privacy fence, just so the people that move in or moved into the house next door aren't looking directly into every spot in my backyard. I know it's a nitrogen fixer. It makes a great chop and drop. That's part of the reason why I chose it. Now, you can see here, it needs to be pruned. I have to prune it once or twice a year, massively. It is in the growing season. I sacrifice all the stuff that comes off of it, and I make biochar. I use it as chop and drop. Here's an area that I filled with branches from it last year. That feeds my banana tree. And that's its purpose. Its purpose is not being able to see through from the other side, and it's a nice nitrogen fixer. I get the benefit of very nice flowers twice a year. It blooms in the late spring and then again in the fall. It's a lovely plant to have. This is one of my elderberries. It is also growing here as a sacrificial plant. Yes, it's a perennial. It can grow very large, like its mother over here. But this one in particular is sacrificial. The reason it's sacrificial is I don't intend on letting it continue to grow here. What I intend on doing is taking and using the biochar. But while it's growing, I'm going to have berries, so I can make elderberry jam. And I'm going to have flowers. Now, these flowers are lovely, and I really enjoy seeing them, but they have medicinal properties as well. I know I'm going to cut this tree down. I don't want it here. It's a weed, but I'm choosing to let it grow so that I can get the biomass off of it. I can get more medicine and more berries off of it. And I'll get biochar when all is said and done. Here's another sacrificial plant. These are just southern peas, black-eyed peas. Once again, it's a nitrogen fixer. I may and I may not get a harvest off of them. The harvest isn't why I decided to grow them. I grew them as a nitrogen fixer in this bed because they will grow through the time period that my tomatoes will not, allowing nitrogen to be fixed into the soil before I grow my intended crop. It's a cover crop. I actually seeded it heavy. This is how much came up. But that's okay. It'll get the job done. Now, there are many different plants that you can use as sacrificial plants. Whether it's just a placeholder or if it's providing a service for you. Providing the service does not necessarily have to be a food crop. It could be something that produces a natural insecticide. It could be a food plant that does that as well. For instance, I grow a lot of mustards. My mustards are basically wild. They come up in my grass throughout my lawn. It gives me the benefit of, one, I get the mustard greens. Two, I get the seed, and I make sure I let it seed out. I collect some, and I use the seeds for cooking. But it's sacrificial. If I need to cut down that area, it's no big deal. But another service it gives me is I fight a pest here in Florida called root knot nematodes. If you have sand and you're in the South, you're probably familiar with that. Mustard greens kill root knot nematodes. I literally have them growing in the area that the root knot nematodes would be most concentrated, dropping the numbers throughout the whole property. I also grow them in beds. If I see that there's a problem, then I'll seed that area. It's just a cover crop with some benefits. But you can use all types of different things. Oregano works really well. Maybe you have a mosquito problem, so mints do really well. Now down here in Florida, we can plant mint in the ground and it doesn't go haywire, at least Central and South Florida. And that's because the Florida summer is going to come along and it's going to whack that mint. So it's a sacrificial. You can plant up in the fall and it'll go all the way until late spring, early summer before it finally dies out. And you get the benefits of it keeping the mosquitoes away, other flying insects, and you get mint out of it. But I know it's a sacrificial plant because for me it's not a perennial that's going to just stay forever. Now, some are your weeds. Some of your weeds are some of your best sacrificials. I happen to have a particular weed that grows around here called bitter melon. Bitter melon is actually a phosphorus and potassium fixer, especially high on the potassium. If it's growing in an area, it tells you that you actually have a potassium deficiency. But it collects the potassium, just like a nitrogen fixer, just with potassium. This makes a great sacrificial plant. Now, did I want that plant on the property? No. No, I didn't. And now that I have it, I'm not really going to be able to get rid of it. There's just too much. but I can use that plant. Every time I see one, into a bucket. Choose your weeds if you can. Sometimes you don't get the choice. I have a couple things I definitely don't want. However, that being said, it is what it is. Use them. They're there for a reason. Plant certain things for a reason. Behind me is a mulberry. Yes, I grow it for the mulberries. But I also grow it for the leaves. These leaves are chicken food. Really good quality chicken food. I'm going to sacrifice parts of this tree. Now, I'm not going to cut down the whole tree, so it's not a full sacrificial plant. But I'm going to cut parts of it off. I'm going to make clones. So it's a mother plant for me. It is a good sacrificial plant if you need feed. You can grow mulberries and you can feed goats, chickens, cows, whatever. So you can have a mother plant like this and you can get a whole bunch of cuttings. And you can go out and you can plant them like 18 inches apart. Whole bunches and bunches of them. When they get about this big, which happens really fast, so you're talking about halfway through the growing season here in Florida, your clones are suddenly 4 foot tall. Well, then you let animals out into that particular area and they eat it. Those are sacrificial plants that are providing a benefit. So think outside of the box. Get to know your plants. Have a good day.